What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 112 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today I welcomed a singer-songwriter, producer out of Vancouver in Canada. Her name is Tay. I actually connected with her on Instagram probably about a year and a half ago and just been following her music and what she's been releasing. She actually has a collaboration coming up with me and Jay Trey on his next album, which I'm looking forward to. But this week I finally got to talk to her on a face-to-face basis and get to know more about her. She talks about coming from a musical family. Her mom actually played many instruments back in the day. She talks about, taking piano lessons when she was younger and how she really didn't, stick with that. She really didn't want to do jazz music or pop music like a lot of people wanted her to. And she went more of the R&B and Hip-Hop route. She talks about being influenced by, late 90s hip-hop and R&B and some early 2000s, as well as some modern hip-hop and R&B artists as well. And she also talked about her next album that's going to be coming out, how she's been recording mostly from home, and also her comfort level as an artist. I really loved her message about staying authentic to herself and really just pushing through kind of all the negative, connotations surrounding artists these days. And I also loved her take on, how we as artists have a lot of freedom nowadays. So we really shouldn't be afraid to kind of put ourselves out there and be our true selves through the music and really just keep it about the music at the end of the day. And I think that's what is going to make, her continue to do music at a high level and really put out great quality content. So I really appreciate her for her time. I'm looking forward to her album and everything. And I really hope you guys enjoy this one. It was a really great episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. So welcome everyone to episode 112 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today we have a really great singer-songwriter. I believe she's a producer as well. She does all kinds of amazing things. She's out of Vancouver, up in Canada. Tay is here. How are you?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today. It's going to be great to kind of get to know a little bit more about you. So to start off every episode, we have the guest give a bit of background. How did you get into music? How long have you been doing it? Pretty much simple information for those that might not be familiar with you and what you do.
Let's see. How did I get into music? Well, my mom is actually a musician. She was in a band. She plays pretty much every instrument. Like, she played the drums, the sax, guitar, piano. She was a vocalist. So, and it kind of runs on my mom's side of the family. So a lot of my cousins also play instruments and make music. And at the early age, my mom kind of taught me how to play a little bit of piano. And then later on in life, basically piano wasn't my thing. I didn't really like it, and I felt really bad because she really, really, really loves piano. But I started singing, and then I started taking lessons when I was about, I would say, 16. And but I was really shy. I had a really hard time singing in front of people. But I would always do my lessons. That was a really important thing to me. Mm-hmm. And then later on, I did actually try to go and do a demo. I went to Korea. I'm Korean, and I went to Korea and tried to do a demo out there. But the style wasn't my style, and it felt really what do you say? They wanted you to be a very certain way, and it wasn't for me. Mm. So then I came back and I tried to do some stuff when I was in my 20s, and I was still doing singing lessons and trying to connect with people. But I tried to do a couple songs with a couple people, which I did. But again, it wasn't really my style. I really wanted to be a writer, a singer-songwriter. And it was really hard to find people to connect with that would be on the same vibe. I really love hip-hop. That's my hip-hop and R&B are for me, the two biggest things. And so my sound, I really wanted to have that kind of that 90s vibe of R&B. And it was, so everyone kind of wanted me to do pop. And then I sang a bit of jazz. I tried a whole bunch of different things. And then I finally, once I started making my own music, then I felt okay, now I'm kind of found my own voice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a long journey, but I think you have to be like authentically you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I tried to do other things, but it just wasn't me really. Yeah. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear, though, that you kind of found your voice after all that time. You know what I mean? Because I think you could have easily just done what everyone else kind of wanted you to do and fall into that. But it's like then the love kind of goes away. You know what I mean? And at that point, it's like why are you doing it at all? You got to really get to the point where you're comfortable with yourself and who you are, and just putting yourself out there and being vulnerable in the music. And I think that
Yeah.
that is the only way that it can work, regardless. And that's incredible too, to hear that you kind of just have been on that long journey and it's still working out and everything for you. So obviously hip hop and R&B, that could be a lot of different influences as far as like who you listen to growing up or who you listen to now. So I'm curious, like, who are a few artists that you really are like a big fan of even today, that you still kind of, when you hear them, you're like, I want to go make like my music kind of like them, or like influenced by them?
Yeah, I mean, definitely growing up, I grew up in the era of like Mobb Deep and Biggie, and that era. And it's like my new album actually coming out. It's like there's a nod to the Queensbridge vibe of that time. So for me, like I still listen to all that old school stuff like Pete Rock and CL Smooth. Like I'm an older person, that old head kind of OG kind of rap. Also, though, I really, really love Kendrick Lamar. Like, for me, his new album, and someone that's kind of newer. Like, I think he is absolutely amazing. And also some female artists like Young Ma and like Megan Thee Stallion. Like, there's some really really strong female rappers too that I really enjoy listening to. So yeah, it's kind of all over, but yeah, those are kind of the few people that I listen to.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what about on the R&B side then? Like, is that mostly 90s as well, kind of like Jodeci type vibes? Like, who were you listening to a lot back then, or maybe still today?
So today, definitely love R&B now. Like Summer Walker is like one of my favorites. Like I think she's just so dope. Her, like, Alicia Keys, but yeah, I'm more old school in that way, like, Mary J, the Monica, that era. Like, and my music is very much kind of sounds like that kind of vibe to it, for sure.
Yeah. So how, like, maybe not all the time as far as like every song you've ever made, but let's say just where you're at now, how are you kind of going into creating these songs? Are you starting with kind of like a melody idea and working it out from there? Are you always songwriting and just coming up with ideas to create songs with? Like, how does the process go for most of the songs you've done so far?
Yeah, so sometimes sometimes I just hear a beat, like just the beat. There's no music, and then I just feel a vibe, and then I create a song that way. A lot of the times, though, it's a memory, or it's an emotion that I'm feeling, and then I hear like just like a riff or a loop, and then and then I can create something from just that, and then I add in everything else that way. Like so I would say majority of the time it is emotional. It's some kind of memory, or it's like many memories in one. Like if I'm thinking about like one of the songs I did, Stay, that song's pretty much about loss, like death, but it sounds like it's about love, but it really is about losing people in your life and things like that. And then just that emotion and thinking about it just, that the song came out of that emotion. Yeah.
And it's crazy because sometimes I feel that way too. Like, I don't write music, like words or anything, or I can't sing or anything, but even like in production, like when I make a song, it's like you could just have like a simple idea or something that you're thinking about from your past maybe, and you channel that into the music and it kind of just comes out. You know what I mean? You're not really trying that hard at all. It just kind of works itself out through your emotions. So I think that's like super, super crazy to think about, that we have that power. You know what I mean? Like we always sometimes overthink these things, especially when we sit down and we're like, I gotta make this song what I envision. Like if it's not how I want it to be, it might not be great. But sometimes if we just let it flow and let kind of go through the
Mhm.
motions, it'll work out the way it's supposed to. So I think that's kind of what you're describing as well, is like you kind of just sometimes sit down and it just kind of works for you. And I think that's definitely incredible. So are you working with, like, on some of these songs, are you working with like an engineer or anyone else? Maybe someone that is like either mixing or also
Mhm.
co-producing some of the songs as well. Is there anyone you want to shout out that we should know about?
Yeah, for sure. My engineer mixer is Bobby Morales, and he is incredible in terms of making me sound really dope on the mixes. He's he's like really cool and makes everything sound like if I need anything to be tweaked a little bit, like, and it's really important that you vibe right with that
Mm-hmm.
person. Um, and a lot of my beats are from the beat provider, which I also credit in my producing. A lot of the beats are um, from him, but I also create some of my own beats, and I think it's really good. I just started trying to venture out when working with different people. Um, and again, I think when you work with different people, like I worked with Mocha Only, who's a local, like a big Canadian rapper here. Like you feel different vibes and you feel different energy, and then you kind of create like a different sound or a different feeling. And yeah, so have had some cool experiences with those people, and I'm hoping that I can work with more people, because I think in the end it's just like the journey of like connecting with new people, and then when you connect and make music, and it just has a different feeling with each person that you work with, and then you grow in certain ways. Like um, Bobby taught me a lot about how to like songwrite properly and how to structure things, and yeah, you just learn from each person like so many different things, and I think that's really cool about working with all those different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the beauty of it too, and the beauty of like collaboration, because you can bounce those ideas off of different people and you can get that different perspective. Because I think sometimes where, because let's say like with nowadays we have our laptops and we can record ourselves if we wanted to. We can kind of just do everything ourselves if we really wanted to. But I think it's still important to get out there and work with different people so you get that different opinion and you're not just in your own little world all the time. Like obviously sometimes we want to be, and we kind of just want to sit there and do our own thing and be in our own time and space, but then you hear something, it might help that idea and like might further it and make it
Mm-hmm.
even better. So I think that's definitely important. And what you said about like your engineer too, like your engineer, they got to kind of know your tendencies, you know what I mean, like your voice, they got to know where you want things to sit at, where you want the levels at, the production and the vocal production too, because I was talking to my friend Janessa a couple weeks ago for the podcast, and she was talking about the importance of vocal production and how she's been sitting down with different people, engineers, kind of like showing her how she wants to be
Mm-hmm.
vocally produced. And I honestly never really thought of it like that, but now I'm like, I kind of got to do that with the artists I work with as well, and kind of see like where do we want this song to end up at the end of it, you know what I mean? So it really is exactly what the artist had envisioned. So that's definitely all super important stuff, and I definitely think that if you can lock in with an engineer that you feel comfortable with, it definitely helps. So are you more of like, let's say, in-home studio, kind of your own little setup, doing a lot of this stuff? Or are you going to studios in the city? Or are you going to friends' houses to record? Like, where do you think you're most comfortable making music nowadays?
Yeah, I've tried all of the above. And my engineer is actually in Toronto, so when he's out here, like he has a studio space. My last album, we just kind of went through listening to it together, like when the time that he has when he's here. But I find, and I've gone to people's houses. I've been in like recording studio, like professional recording, but I feel most comfortable in my own space, and I do all my own recordings, which took a little while for me to learn. But I find that like it's just so freeing to have that space, because it's any time of day. You might just have the feeling of, okay, I have this idea, or oh, that last verse, I kind of want to change it and I feel like a totally different vibe to it, you can just go in and, you know, it's just right there, you know, anytime. So I feel like having your own studio at home is the best thing for me. I don't really like, I don't know, I'm not comfortable with like being in front of a whole bunch of people when I'm doing the creative process. I think that part, it's like it's a very intimate process, and I'm only comfortable with like certain people, I guess.
Yeah.
If I can, yeah.
Yeah. And it feels like a lot of times, even when people have giant sessions, there's a lot of people in there that don't really need to be there. They're kind of just there to say that they're there, and they don't really contribute to the idea. So it's like, if you could just have you and like maybe the engineer and producer, and that's about it. Like, you don't really need a ton of people in there. And yeah, I agree with that entirely, because you can lay these ideas down in real time too. If it's right there in front of you, you don't have to wait to book a session or drive elsewhere, and by then you might have forgotten that idea. You know what I mean? Even if you wrote it down, if it's in your head and you're like, oh, I want to deliver this now in this certain way, you might have forgot it, and then you get to the studio and you're like, oh, I forget how to even deliver that the right way, or the way that I thought originally. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, would you say that lockdown, like a couple years ago, kind of made you do that more, or were you already kind of home recording before all that happened?
No, actually, the lockdown really pushed me artistically. Like, I was like, okay, I'm home. I have nothing. Like, I have no excuses now. Like, I watch a lot of DJs too, and I remember watching this clip on DJ Jazzy Jeff is like, if you're an artist in this time right now, you have no excuses. There's all this equipment. Like, you just have to learn. You don't even have to have like really good equipment. And I literally started off with like a tiny little MIDI piano, and I did my whole EP on it basically. And then I got a bigger, keyboard. But that lockdown, man, I remember in that 1 month, I wrote like so many songs. Like, it just, I don't know, it pushed me so much artistically to, you know, just delve into that piece of me. And then after that, it was like, yeah, it was just constant after that, you know, like, yeah. I don't think if that didn't happen, I don't know if I would be writing this much music or on that path for sure. Yeah.
You got to take those opportunities when they come too, because I know I had talked to a lot of people, like especially last year and the year before. Like, basically every episode I would ask them that, like, what have you been doing during like lockdown or during the pandemic or whatever, and a lot of them said like they were being really productive using the time for their music and kind of just learning new skills. And there were so many artists that came out and they said they had no idea how to record themselves. They had no idea like how to use a DAW or do any of that stuff, but they sat down and just kind of figured it out. And now they're taking the skills they learned and they're like even further along now, and they feel like they can do that for themselves more often. They can go to studios, and if the engineer doesn't show up, they're like, oh, I'm okay. I can just pull it up right here and just do it myself because I know how to now. So it's like you got to kind of take, even though obviously it was like kind of a terrible thing that was happening, it's like you take those opportunities and you take advantage of them, and you know, you find good in it and everything. And I think that's great to hear that you did as well. So obviously, you know, you're working on this new album, this new project. What has that experience been like so far? Like, how many songs do you say are almost done, or are you kind of wrapping it up? Are you in the final stages? Like, how is it going so far?
It's going good. Like, I'm pretty much done. I got maybe just a couple more songs that I want to put on there. The process has been much different because the first EP was like my first one, and you know, I was just learning the basics of the basics, and I'm glad I just put it out because, you know, you always want it to be perfect, but it's like sometimes it's just you just gotta put it out there. And then the second time around, when I started putting this album together, I found like it was much easier in the sense of just knowing how, you know, to do certain things. The first EP was very simple. I didn't do very much harmony. Like, I wanted it to be very sort of like simplified, just my voice But this album, I did a ton of harmony, a ton of ad-libbing. Like, I made it way more, I don't know, I guess fuller in a sense, just to show my growth as an artist. And I wrote every single song, and it's been really cool. Yeah, it's probably going to be out, I think, in the fall. I feel like it's more of a fall album. So I'm really excited, and I'm just kind of doing the last few songs right now, and maybe adding a couple more. But yeah, it's been really good compared to the first time around. I was like, really, oh, I don't know if I'm doing this right. And then now I'm just like, if it feels good, and that to me, and I let some people listen to the songs, and like, it sounds good to them, and like people that I really respect in terms of music. And so far I've gotten really good feedback on it, so I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome. And, it sounds like it's going to show kind of the evolution, too, of where you're at as an artist as well. So that's incredible. Are you going to do any, like, visuals for it? Maybe not music videos, but maybe, like, stuff for social media or something for the songs? Did you have anything in mind?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. The main single, I'm so hyped about that song. I think it's so dope. I'm definitely going to do something visual. I don't know. I'm still contemplating. I don't like being out, like, it's hard for me. I don't like, when I did my first photo shoot, I felt really kind of weird and awkward. So I'm trying to, like, do a little bit more of that kind of stuff, like maybe eventually a video, maybe a lyric video. But I know that that part has to be there too as an artist. Like, you can't always just hide your face, because in the beginning I didn't show my face at all, and now I'm a lot more comfortable. So I'm hoping to do something definitely visual for this album.
Yeah. And that, I think that goes back to, like, comfort level as well over time, because you never know, like, eventually you might want to do things like that. It's just kind of, you got to take your time with it and don't force anything and just see where it goes. So I think that's great. I think that just goes to show, you're keeping it authentic. You don't want to do anything that isn't, like, what you're trying to convey to people, and I think that's incredible. So I'm definitely looking forward to that whenever it comes out. Congratulations, early congratulations on that.
Thank you.
For real. So last few questions here. These are ones I ask every guest on every episode, and the first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago, maybe give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
Yeah, I got really frustrated in my younger, like sort of early 20s. Like, I really wanted to do music. It wasn't going my way, but I swear, man, like, everything has a time and place. And, because we can be independent now, it's like the most freeing thing of music. You own all your music. You can put anything out there. You can make whatever you want, right? It's like, it's just so uniquely to the artist now. And I think if I went that other way of being like pop, jazz, and I wasn't feeling it, like, you're just conforming to something that's not authentically you. So even though it might take you a while to get to that road, it's like, we're at a place as artists where we have so much freedom, so much creative freedom. Whatever image you want to put of yourself too, like, that was a big thing for me. My image, like, again, I'm really shy, so like, I can take my time. I don't need to be out there and doing all this stuff. Like, it's all up to me, and you're just being real to yourself. And I think that's really cool. So I wouldn't, if you're struggling, there's always time, and meeting certain people too that really ignite your sort of, I don't know, that spark in you. Like, until I met a couple people, like, I wasn't really, I don't know, at the place where I was in terms of my writing or my voice. And so I think everything happens for a reason. You just have to trust that you just keep going on the path and being who you really are, and then you'll get there eventually. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's what being an artist is all about too. So I love that. And really, life in general, you kind of just got to wait and see where it goes. And sometimes it might just end up where exactly you want it to be. So it might just not be the route you thought it was going to be. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So if we flip this then and we say 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself in your career and your life in general?
hope, like, the whole reason for me to do music is, I don't know, it's like a spiritual feeling that I can't even describe. I'm sure you can relate on that level of like healing and empowering. And I'm all just doing this for the love of music. Like I'm not trying to like become famous. I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm honestly just trying to make good music, what I feel is good music, and hopefully like share that with people. And I just hope to just continue on that road. And I hope I still am making music even 10 years down the road. Yeah.
Yeah. It really is like a form of like personal therapy. Like when no one else is there, you still got music, you know what I mean? You can just go and just make whatever you want that day, and it helps. Somehow it helps. Like you don't really you can't really describe it, but yeah, I definitely feel exactly where you're coming from with that. So do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners today?
What can I say? Just be thankful and grateful every day. And for me, music is I don't know, my whole life. And I think if you're an artist or if you're a music lover, it's just, you know, being in that vibe with the moment of the music is just like, I don't know, it helps you feel present. It helps you feel like you're living. And I would just say, like, I think that's for me, the most important thing about music is that piece, right? Like just being here, present, and feeling all the emotion, and it just helps you feel more alive, like in general, you know?
Yep. Yeah. And couldn't have said it better myself. I think if we just continue to keep that in mind, that's how you got to live life at the end of the day. So I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you joining me once again. This was a great episode.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, keep being authentic. Keep doing your thing. I'm looking forward to the album, obviously, the collab we have coming out soon. Looking forward to that and everything. And we might have to do this again soon.
Okay, for sure.
Thanks, guys, for listening today. That was episode 112. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit the support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send any funds. Feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.